Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, there between Jason, welcome back to the rundown, a 10-minute testing ripoff for the TCG. In an effort to show off more decks that have gotten recent support, I've decided to take another dive into the Maze of Muertos. I know not many of you have seen it, but in my big opening I did of Maze of Muertos, I pulled not only an alternative art that debuted for this deck, but also a collector's rare. And while reading said collector's rare, I thought, this card seems kind of broken. So without further ado, please allow me to introduce to you, Mikanko. That's right, today we're taking a look at Mikanko, a deck that I can say has been always quite interesting. You see, Mikanko is one of those blind second decks. Konami expanded on the sort of U-Bell-like effect of a zero-attack monster that's swinging into bigger guys to then deal damage to the opponent. Mikanko took this concept and really made it function. Usually you'd play something like a bunch of kaijus and just kaiju over your opponent's monsters and then boom, 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 punch them from there. Any master duelist will remember that usually when you got sent first pre-Tenpai, you would just pass on an empty board because Mikanko couldn't do anything. Well, Konami was better late than never in fixing this issue, as they introduced a brand new XYZ monster that solves that problem. That brand new monster did not come alone. We got a whole wave of brand new support cards from Mikanko and some new generics that we could also fit into the deck as well. So let's get into the card by card. To start us off, we're on 3 Ohime the Manifest of Mikanko, 3 Mikanko Shinbu Noble Twins. This is one of the brand new support cards that I pulled the collectors of. Normal spell card, send 1 Mikanko card from your deck to the graveyard except Mikanko Shinbu Noble Twins. Then you can set 1 Mikanko spell trap from your deck except Mikanko Shinbu Noble Twins. You cannot special summon the extract for this turn after this card resolves except Mikanko monsters. You can banish this card from your graveyard, detach 1 material from one monster you control, special summon 1 Mikanko ritual monster from your hand or deck. You can only use 1 Mikanko Shinbu Noble Twins effect per turn and only once that turn. So Shinbu is pretty much everything. Sets up your graveyard for a play with Fire Dance or Meo Ashidori. It also gets both a spell and monster in rotation depending on what you need. Now, you might be asking, what is the best send off Shinbu? Well, that would be the brand new support card Sanaki, the Mikanko Devotee. You can target 1 Mikanko card you control, return it to the hand. If an equipped card becomes equipped to this card, you can special summon 1 non-illusion Mikanko monster from your deck. Also, you cannot special summon the extract for the rest of this turn except Mikanko monsters. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 face-up monster in the field. Equip this card to it as an equipped spell. You can only use each effect of Sanaki, the Mikanko Devotee, once per turn. So Sanaki is a really powerful card. She is essentially E-Telly's another Mikanko from deck. It can also get us set up with equips if we already have the other Mikankos in rotation to sort of play around with. You'll also notice there is both a lock on Sanaki and Shinbu that stops you from summoning anything but Mikankos because, honestly, in my opinion, if these cards didn't have locks, this would be a really nice rank 3 engine. Anyway, we're on 1 Huli the Jewel Mikanko, 1 Hare, 1 Nini the Mirror Mikanko, 3 Mikanko Water Arabesque, 1 Mikanko Fire Dance, Mikanko Dance Meo Ashidori, the Great Mikanko Ceremony, and 1 Mikanko Rivalry. Now, to round out our main deck equip cards, we're on 1 copy of Snatch Steel and 1 Double-Edged Sword. We have 3 copies of prep. Of course, we just want more ways to search the Ohime, so we definitely need the 3 prep. We also have Harpy's Feather Duster, and we're on 3 copies of Illusion Gate. Pay half your life points, destroy as many monsters your opponent controls as possible, then you can special 1 monster from your opponent's graveyard to your field, ignoring its summoning conditions, and you can only apply this effect Illusion Gate once per duel. So, in case you are unaware, Illusion Gate did also debut in the Maze of Muertos, and it's a pretty decent card. It is functionally Dark Hull plus Called by the Grave, so if you would destroy a monster on field, that would then trigger in the graveyard, because Illusion Gate summons in the same effect as its destruction, in the same resolution as its destruction, you can take the card that would be triggering from the opponent's graveyard on the destruction and just put it on your board. Following that, we're on 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet, 2 Triple Attack Thrust. Very important to find Shinbu, and since it is a normal spell, that means it's searchable off Thrust. And finally, we're on 3 Lava Golem, 3 Fuelos, and 3 Perulio. We're blinding second. We need cards like the Charmies to make sure we don't get just obliterated. Now onto the extract, we're on 2 copies of Uzuhime the Manifest of Mikanko. If this card is special summoned, you can add 1 equipped spell from your deck or graveyard to your hand. You only use this effect of Uzuhime the Manifest of Mikanko once per turn. Cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, your opponent takes any battle damage you would have taken from the battles involving this card. If this card attacks and battles, at the end of the damage step, you can detach 1 material from this card. It can attack again in a row. So the way Uzuhime fixed the empty board issue of Mikanko is on summon. It will add you the copy of Double-Edged Sword. You equip Double-Edged Sword to the Uzuhime, and then when Uzuhime attacks your opponent, she'll be hitting them for 4k on each attack, and she can attack up to 3 times per turn, because her effect to detach to attack again is not once per turn. And the rest of the extra deck is just kind of stuff. The rest of the extra doesn't really come up much, because we're usually starting with Shinbu or Sanaki, which lock us, but we are playing some good stuff. So we're on 1 number 49 Fortune Tune, Downward Magician, Super Star Slayer Typhon, Zeus, Access Code Talker, Selene, Promethean Princess, Raging Phoenix, Hida, Almirage, IP Masquerena, and SP Little Knight. Now on to the side deck. We're on 3 copies of Lightning Storm, 2 Droll and Lock Bird, 3 Retaliating Sea, and the cards we sided in case we have to go first. Axe of Fools, Mikanko, Spirit Walk, There Can Be Only One, 3-Dimensional Fissure, and 1 Called by the Grave. So that's the deck, and why don't we see it in action? Alright, here we are, game number 1, and our opponent is on Pure Mitsurugi. Of course, we are going second, and this is a game 2 in a best of 3. They're going to leave Dimensional Shifter, which they sided in for some reason against us. Anyway, they're going to normal summon Manju, add Mitsurugi Ritual. Then they will be activating the Mitsurugi Ritual, banishing 2 of their guys to summon Murakumo. Alright, well, the guys still do trigger in the banish zone because they were tributed. They're going to add a Habakiri off of one of their adds and add back Ritual from banish. It is nice that they can kind of play around it like this, because when they are like tributing for the ritual summons, they do get their guys back. But I still don't think it's very smart to side into Shifter against Mikanko of all decks. Anyway, so they're summoning out Futsu, then tributing the Futsu for another summon, adding a Mitsurugi Prayers and bringing back the Futsu. Futsu is actually pretty good for us because we love to have them with this big monster on the board. Anyway, they're going to overlay for Dugar's discard to draw 2, discard 1. There goes their Prayers, set to summon IP Masquerena and pass. Alright, this is a lot less starting board, and then they flip Eradicate Epidemic Virus. Alright, sure. Bring back Murakumo and adding this mirror. But wait, is that 2 monsters on your side of the board? Alright, draw a standby, and they already triggered the tribute effect. Alright, anyway, here's a Lava Golem. Then we'll go Ohime effect, add War Arabesque. I got War Arabesque. Sorry. To summon out Sanaki. Sanaki effect is going to get us Huli from deck. Huli is now protecting us from all kinds of targeting effects. And I'm going to go Prayers for Aramasa for some reason. Okay, sure. Just trying to stave off damage, but I don't think they realize what we can do here. So we'll go ahead and add Fire Dance on this. Why? Because we're going to summon this Hare from hand and summon their Dimensional Shifter from the graveyard. And wouldn't you know, that is 2 monsters on their side of the board. So we're going to summon Lava Golem once again, and the game's over. Swing with the Hare and swing in with an XYZ twice. Possibly could have gone different if the opponent didn't throw, but that Eradicator in any other hand probably cooked us. Alright, here we are, game number 2, and our opponent's playing one of those really annoying pile decks that are all the rage right now. The ones where you just play a bunch of engines that don't really go into each other too much, but can just exist next to each other because there's no locks. This one specifically is Yummy, White Forest, Synchro, Dragoon. Let's just let them get started. Of course, we're going second, and we open a pretty decent hand. They're going to lead Wanted and draw, and we will go Perulia. They have Ash Blossom for Perulia, which is sad, I guess. They're going to add Diabellstar, the Black Witch. And then we'll go main phase. They'll be activating Diabellstar by pitching Ghost Spell. Cool, no hand traps. Nice. Send Deception, and then they will banish for Demod, adding the Gaze. Next up, they're going to do Deception, tributing the Demod to add Debtors. Debtors was a much better card than the Hollow Asmina, might I mention, and use Debtors to immediately summon Ilya Sylvia. Oh, if we had Nibiru, we wouldn't be able to use it now. Anyway, so now they're going to normal summon Marshmallow Yummy and make Snatchy. Snatchy's going to set them the field spell from hand, by the way, very funny. And they'll make Cupsy Yummy Way. Cupsy Yummy Way, it's going to add Cupsy and Cookie and discard the Gaze. I was very confused about this until I realized they were on the Asmina. I'm sorry, the White Forest cards. These are just one big blur to me, if I'm being really honest. Oh, there's the Sarham, and make Hyper Librarian, a card I find very frustrating that it exists, because it's only the most fair decks that truly use this. Anyway, they're going to go for Link Kariba, then Synchro, summon Lalipo Yummy Way, getting a draw of Hyper Librarian in the process. The Starham pitching 2 there. I got the Altar Veiler in there. To then make the Rusela? Whatever, the White Forest Synchro. The one that gets them to bridge into all the White Forest stuff. And of course there's LZ. They're going to use LZ to Synchro summon the Diabell Queen, and she's going to add back the Gaze. There's going to add a copy of Wanted and draw a card off the Hyper Librarian. if it wasn't unfair enough. Anyway, they're going to make Snatchy Link off for SP Little Guy and pass with 2 sets. Anyway, let's go ahead and take care of the most pressing cards by summoning a Lava Golem. They're going to gaze for Dragoon, and I think we're pretty well off here because we get to just droplet the rest of their interactions. Anyway, thank God those are not hand traps. We're going to summon Sanaki to then summon Huli from the deck, XYZing and Uzuhime, who gets Ghost Spelled. That's fine. You have a 3k attack point monster in the field, so we're going to attack once, burn them for 3k, hit him again, burn them for 3k, and I think I'll hit you one more time. And just for the lulz, let's equip Sanaki. Good stuff. Great deck. Glad people are playing these kinds of things, huh? Alright, here we are, game number 3, and our opponent's on Branded Dracotail. Wow, meta deck, Pog Champ, meta deck, Pog Champ. Of course, we're going second, and they lead with a normal summon of Blazing Cartesia. Fusing off Perulia and Lucius to summon Arthalion, and then Arthalion bouncing those 2 cards to hand, sending a Rahu Dracotail in the process. We're going to Rahu, sending Lucius again, and a card from deck looks like a Frixel to make Gulamel, then setting Ketu. We're going to activate the Ketu for 5 Mina, and even though they're doing this a little bit of an awkward kind of way, they are still doing everything. 5 Mina fuse from hand to make Secretarian effect, summoning Arthalion, putting 5 Mina back in the deck for some reason. Or Lucius. I swear the game just showed me them targeting 5 Mina. Oh well. Well, we're gonna go Snatch Steal on Secretarian, which will eat a flame. Anyway, that's fine because we have Illusion Gate. Stop real quick. Folks, don't make the same mistake I made. This guy needs to be Fusion Summoned to be a Floodgate. Anyway, we're going to go Preparation of Rites to add Ohime. We're going to head and activate the Ohime effect, adding Shinbu, and then pitching the extra droplet. Shinbu effect to send Sanaki and set Fire Dance, and we are just trying to find lethal from here pretty much. So Sanaki effect get Huli, and oh, we walk right into the Forbidden Droplet, and they're going to bring back their guys, chaining Perulia, so we will chain Great Mikanko Ceremony to summon our Ohime effect to grab Snatch Steal on Gulamel, and then I go Thrust for the trap, and then I realize, wait a second, we have Great Mikanko Ceremony Grave. And Omega has frozen, but that's fine. Omega has frozen here because they actually just surrendered at this point. They realize that the Great Mikanko Ceremony is pretty much everything, and we just can go lethal from there. I actually took me a while before I even remembered that Great Mikanko Ceremony even has a graveyard effect in the first place. Also, I would love to re-record this, but Omega keeps freezing at this part. Trust me, they surrendered here. Alright, let's get on to the next section of the video. So, after restarting Omega for the 3rd time, we're back with the deck. And hey! That was pretty good. With all decks come the pros and the cons. So, let's start with the pros. Shinbu is just a crazy card. Yeah, this boxes out the like Acid Golem Floodgate version of Mikanko, but I'm pretty sure we all left that behind like 3 years ago at this point. Speaking of Sanaki, she is an incredible card. The E-Tele-like effect, being able to just grab Huli, Hare, or Nini is really powerful. We're finally able to shave down on the cards that are just okay draws. You didn't actually really want to ever find the monsters when you're blinding second because you always wanted to just summon something off Water Arabesque. And now we have Sanaki who could just get you everything at once. There were so many just, I don't want to call them non-bows, but we had to max out on cards like Great Mikanko Ceremony, on Hulis, on Hares, most decks even cut the Ninis. But now that they're so accessible through both Shinbu and Sanaki, we don't need to play all those things. We're able to cut Great Mikanko Ceremony just down to 1 copy. And honestly, you could argue you could play 0 of this card. You might never even want to summon Ohime, honestly. Just simply using her as a searcher for Shinbu, or your other better cards. The deck is also much better at going first, thanks to Sanaki and Shinbu. Because not only are we able to just get any of their spells, Shinbu can also set the traps as well. We also have the freedom of shaving down on things like the Kaijus, which aren't as important in the deck anymore. We don't need the opponent to have anything on their board anymore, so we can main deck more cards like Illusion Gate, like Lightning Storm. Hell, we could even throw Raigeki into the deck if we wanted, and then thanks to Uzuhime, we'd still be able to win the game. Now, the cons. Shinbu is clearly the most negatable card in the world. Let's be real, this card sends, it sets, it's the #1 If you see this card, you negate this card. It is literally everything. It has the biggest target on its head. Not only that, Soniki herself is also a very negatable card. We were lucky in our games to open more than just a singular play, so when our Soniki or Shinbu would get negated, we were actually able to keep going. The other unfortunate thing is the best one card combo line with Shinbu means we won't be able to 100% keep the Huli protection online. Usually you'd be summoning Huli off of Soniki and then overlaying the two of them into our Uzuhime, which means we'd lose the protection. We also have to keep in mind there are must plays in this deck. We have to play Double-Edged Sword. You probably still need a card like Snatch Steal, just in case. You need something to use the Ohime on field effect, right? The other problem is Uzuhime is also a very negatable card. They could wait out our entire turn, and then when Uzuhime hits the board, they just hit her with an effect failure and we're kind of out of luck. As well as you saw in those games, these big slot pile decks are just getting more and more popular as these generic cards just keep getting printed for some reason. This is a blind second deck. We have to sit through the opponent's entire combo. This version is only on so few hand traps that we're probably not stopping them halfway. All in all, a fun time playing Mikanko. I actually quite enjoyed loading this deck up and just playing it on stream. Just, you know, talking with chat, just chilling while watching the opponent's combo. But yeah, I would say if you've ever been interested in Mikanko, to go ahead and give this a shot. There are, of course, other versions you could play. You could play all breakers or you could play all hand traps. Honestly, both sound good and fun if you're into the kind of blind second fun. I mean, as a Gemini player, that's the kind of thing I enjoy, honestly. But yeah, if you have any suggestions on future decks you'd like to see in this series, go ahead and leave those in the comments below. And while you're down there, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and yeah. Thanks so much for watching again. Goodbye.